Auto layout is a very controversial topic in the space of web design. And a lot of people hate it, a lot of people love it, and a lot of people don't know how to use it. And that's very funny because when you go online and you see when people are discussing about auto layout, you see all sort of different opinions. And I created this video so I can explain what is auto layout, how to use it, and when to use it. I will also give my opinion on it. So what is auto layout? Auto layout is a tool within Figma that helps you create responsive and adaptive designs that adjust automatically as you try to tweak your layouts. And it's very similar to Flexbox in CSS. And now I will show you how it works. So we have two frames, one that has auto layout and another one that doesn't have auto layout. And if we try to stretch this one that doesn't have auto layout, this is what happens. Not cool. And now I will stretch this one that has auto layout, and this is what happens. Boom. Beautiful. So now I will show you how these frames behave when we try to add elements inside of them, right? So we have this button right here, and I will try to add it inside of this frame that doesn't have auto layout, and this is what happens. It goes out of frame. I have to resize the frame so we can see the button, and then I would have to position it like right here, right? And then obviously if we try to stretch, you know what I mean, like it doesn't really move or anything. It just stays in the same position. And now I will try to do the same with the frame that has auto layout, and this is what happens. Amazing. And if we try to stretch, this is what happens. Everything is balanced out. With auto layout, you can create a lot of different, more complex structures like nested frames and all that stuff. And I know that at the beginning it could be a little bit confusing and difficult to understand, but just keep watching this video and you will know exactly when to use it and how to use it. Let's start by creating a very basic frame that's going to be a button. So we create the frame, we add some styling, then we write the text inside of it. And then we can create the auto layout frame by clicking here on the right side and clicking the plus sign. Or as I like to do it, just Shift A, selecting the frame and then Shift A. And now we have the button that has the auto layout activated, and look how it behaves. Beautiful. Now I will talk about the different options we can see inside of the auto layout panel. And the first one I will talk about is the direction option. So to access the panel, we just have to select the frame, and then we will see the panel here on the right side. And these arrows are the arrows we use if we want to place the frame horizontally or vertically. And these are the arrows that are very similar to Flexbox in CSS. I will show you how practical and how efficient auto layout is in some cases. If you have a frame that doesn't have auto layout like this one, and you want to place the frame and everything that is inside of the frame horizontally, you would have to take everything that's inside of the frame out, and then you have to click the frame, and then click here. That is an option to place the frame in landscape. You would click here, and then you place everything again inside of the frame. Now maybe make a group and then place everything in the center, and you have to manually make sure that everything is nicely aligned. And if you want to make the frame larger, you would have to do the same thing. Make the frame large and then this centered. So it's very time consuming. If we have a frame that has auto layout like this one, we just have to select the frame and then go to the menu on the right and then click horizontal layout, and that's it. And then if we make the frame bigger, this is what happens. Everything is perfectly placed. Very powerful. The next option I will explain is the wrap option, and it's this third arrow right here. This option is very useful, and what it does is that it moves the items to the next line when there is no more space, just like this. The next option in the menu is the space between items, and we can change it by clicking here and adding a number like this. We can also click here and then drag so we can see the space. Next to the space between items, we see this square. And this square is used to align the items inside of the frame. And I will show you how it works. I will make the frame bigger so we can see it clearly. And look, we can align the items whatever we want. The next item we see is the padding, and it's very useful to add some padding around the items that are inside of the frame. So we just click here, and very straightforward, we just add some padding. And then we add some padding here for the top and bottom. And we can also add padding individually. Like for example, we just click here, and if we want to add a padding of, let's say, 100 on the right side, we just click here and then add 100 and click enter. That's it. If we want to add a different padding for, the bottom, we just click here and then add a padding, and that's it. Now I will talk about a more advanced feature of this panel, and it's the spacing mode. And the spacing mode is basically the way that our items inside of the frame will behave when we resize the frame. And by default, it's in a mode that is called packed. And it's basically, for example, if I stretch this side of the frame, the items inside of it just stay in the same position. Now, if we want to add a perfect spacing between items as we stretch and we squeeze, there is another mode that is called space between. To activate this mode, we just have to go here inside of the panel, and then when it says align left, because it's aligned to the left, we just double click. And now we will see when we stretch, we see the perfect space between. And then when we squeeze, we also see this responsive space between. The beauty of this is that if we have an item like this button right here, and we want to add it inside of the auto layout frame, the auto layout settings would remain the same. And I will show you how it works. For example, I will add this button right here, and then I will double click here so we can see the space between items. And then if I stretch, we can see that the behavior remains the same. Now I will talk about the advanced auto layout menu. And to access this menu, we just have to click here. On the right side, there is 3 buttons. We just click and the menu will open. And now I will go through all the options we can find here. The first option is strokes, and strokes can be included or excluded. Normally, strokes around objects don't change the size of the objects or the size or affect nearby items. So this might not be perfect because that's not how it works in CSS. So when we are doing development handout, we have to keep in mind if we want to include the borders or the strokes, or if we want to exclude them. And this option is for that. The next option is canvas stacking, and this option is very useful for when we want to change the order of the stacked items inside of the frame. And I will show you how it works. To show you how this works, I will squeeze the frame. We can also do this by adding a negative value in the space between items. But I'm just gonna squeeze the frame, and then we can see the stack items. Now I will go to the menu again, and then we can see 2 options: last on top and first on top. So as we change, we can see the effect. This would only change the order of the stacking. If we want to change the order of the items individually, we will just have to click on the item, And then with the navigation arrows, we would just go and then move it around. Like if we want to move it to the left or right, you can do this with the keyboard. There is other ways to do it, but with the keyboard is the most efficient way. The last option is align text baseline, and this option is very easy to understand. It basically aligns the text with the other item inside of the frame, the baseline of the text, sorry. And I will show you how it works. When we click here, we can see that everything aligns, and then I will show you by using a guide. That's it. Now I will talk about resizing, and resizing is one of the most powerful features of auto layout, and it's one of those things that I use all the time when I'm designing a website. And this is basically the effect that we can get with these options. Resizing may seem like something very complicated to understand, but that's not the case. It's very simple, and I will do my best to try to explain it as best as I can. And once you understand how this works, you will master auto layout. So let's dive in. So in the panel, we have three options. We have fixed, hug, and fill container. I will explain each and show you how it works. The first I will explain is fixed. So when we go here and select the frame and go to the panel that's on the right side, we see two options, which are horizontal resizing and the vertical resizing. Those options affect the frame and also the item that is inside of the frame. And we can set them individually. I will show you how that works. Right now, if I try to expand the frame, nothing happens. And that's because right now the frame is set to fix and the item that is inside of the frame is set to fix as well. And if we try to add more length to the text, let's say I will copy this and paste here, it goes out of frame because it doesn't move, right? It stays static. Now let's see what happens if I select the hug option for the text, and then now we see that the text field has expanded vertically. And now let's see what happens if I select hug for the frame. Now this is more interesting because the frame adapted to the length of the text vertically. And if we see here in the inside of the panel on the right side, we see that it's selected to hug. However, if we resize the frame, it goes back to fixed. And you may wonder why that happens. And that happens because this is how hug should work. When we add more text, we will see that it resizes automatically. So we don't have to resize it manually. And the same thing will happen with the image. If we copy this image and paste, and then select the frame, and we use the vertical layout, we see that the content is perfectly hugged by the container. Now, if we want that nice responsive effect, we would have to use another option, and that option is fill container. So let's see what happens when we activate fill container. We go to the frame, and then we go to the text, and then we select fill container. And as you can see, it adapts perfectly. Let's see how it works when we squeeze and when we stretch. Perfectly responsive. And now let's see how the images behave. And you have to remember that the fill container is only available for the items that are inside of the frame, because obviously the frame is the container, so it doesn't have anything to fill. So right now I will make a quick exercise to demonstrate how to create a block card with auto layout. So I will start by selecting the parent frame, which is this one, and then activate auto layout with Shift A. Now I will go to the article title and text, and I will also activate auto layout because I like to manipulate this area as well. And now I will select the parent frame again, and as we can see, it's already set to hug, and this is done by Figma by default. And now I will go to the image, and I will check and see, okay, it's in fixed, so I will change it to fill container. And now we will see how this card behaves perfectly. And since the parent frame is set to hug, when we add more text here, we can see that it adapts also perfectly. So that was my demonstration on how auto layout works, and I hope it was easy to understand. Now I will talk about when I use auto layout, and I use auto layout in different scenarios. And one of them is when I'm working with a developer or a team of developers. And that makes communication with them way easier because now we are talking the same structural language. However, when I'm doing something that's quick or a project for myself, I don't use auto layout sometimes, right? There is no hard rule. I created this very simple guide that shows when to use auto layout, and you can download it totally for free. I will leave the link in the description. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.